go. All right.
Thank you.
Hello, and welcome finally to this week's episode of the Mystic Nerd Squad podcast. You all, as you're catching this on the podcast and listening to the audio, you will have no idea the amount of energy and positivity that went into making this happen. Recording today via Zoom instead of StreamYard with my guest today, Scott Holmes, who is absolutely the most patient technical support person I've probably ever come across. So thank you for that.
My sincere pleasure, yes.
And the irony is not lost on me that the title of this episode is If I Had a Hammer. And if I had a hammer, perhaps I wouldn't have had as much patience with the computer and the technology challenges. But
that's why we always keep a rubber hammer available. I don't know how it broke. It's broken. I need a new one.
Just need a new one. That's all, folks. So
I don't know what happened. I don't know. It just doesn't work anymore. I just because I hit it 12 times with a rubber mallet doesn't mean, it can't work.
Oh my gosh. We have to just laugh though, and I appreciate you're keeping your cool this whole time, and just, some people might get really stressed out and be like, oh man, I'm not doing this, but you're like, yeah, that's all right.
Okay, so I'm going to ask the question.
Sure.
How do people get annoyed, upset, or on edge when they're around you? That's almost impossible.
All right,
of course, I'm not married to you. I would ask your husband. I'm not married to you, but other than that, I don't see how anybody could. You are just that positive, that lovely, honestly.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here this evening, and I appreciate that. And I do honestly enjoy this, regardless of all the technical difficulties. It's like, if you could choose problems in life, these would be the ones you would choose, right?
These are first world problems. They are not third world problems.
Amen.
We have a house, we have food, we have security, we have safety, we have our family, we have our health. It's all first world problems. It's little.
Yeah. And we're just gonna get started on the conversation about you. And for people who haven't read your chapters, haven't spent time with you, don't know your history, Scott, that is probably like, oh yeah, okay. But they don't really know all that you've been through and how much work you've done to be at this version of yourself, version whatever, 2.0, 15.3, whatever it happens to be.
5.0.
5.0 is a good one. So I just want to thank you for being here to talk about what you're doing. I want to start with the elephant in the room. If people are catching this on video, the gorgeous poster that's over your, I believe it's your left shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
yeah.
Over your left shoulder.
Left, right. What I can never tell because it always goes backwards. I don't know. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about. It says, "Find your voice, save your life." Tell me something about this.
Transcendent men. Laura, our very good friend from Brave Hero Productions, came to me and said, I'm looking for a guy to head up a guy's book. I can't get a guy's book done. I've asked 15 guys and they all say, yeah, well, and I, through just maybe stupidity, but I said, yes. So I said, how hard can it be? Until I realized every yoga class I went to, I was usually the guy. There might have been one more, but I was the guy. Every polarity class I took, I was the guy. I did theta healing. At least there was one other guy with that, but he was a friend of the woman doing it, and so I was kind of the guy. So I said, how many guys are there that are in this realm?
Yeah.
The energy, the healing, the woo-woo. if you will. How many guys are there?
Yeah.
And that was the hard part. When I was coming up with with this, it took me 8 months. And of course, I thought, we'll have this. 8 months is not a I was going to have it. I got closer and closer, and I had 5 guys that I had signed up doing all this work. I interviewed 20 guys. They were either so far in the realm of, I'm not going to waste my time doing a collaboration, or it's not the right time, or so I didn't really want to give up. And she said, you have to talk to Diana Leader. Now, Diana has a series of 3 books, and she wants to do a guy's book. I said, okay. So Diana and I sat down, and we went through probably 4 meetings, just the 2 of us talking back and forth. Now, she had never had men as clients. Her realm was really women's work and finding, and she's, and if you know Diana, you know that she is very women's power, women's using their voice to make sure they're heard. And I love that. Having raised only daughters, I understood, because when I raised my daughters, I wanted them to be independent, fiscally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, so that when their partner came around, or an opportunity for that, they could give themselves fully. They didn't do the latch-on thing. Oh, good, he's going to save me. No. We're talking partnership. So Diana and I formed that kind of partnership with a complete understanding of where we wanted to take the book. In total, we interviewed 50 men.
Wow.
And, because of timing, of life experiences, where they were in their journey, they didn't fit. And then I had suggested that we meet every 2 weeks. And she's like, 2 weeks? Why would you do that? It's like, because I truly believe this is a collaboration. Most of these guys, there were 22 of us, had not written anything. They had never written any published book.
Oh, wow.
They were not healers. They were not, they weren't business people. Half were either teachers or healers, or there was a shaman, there was musicians, there was a lot of different energy, but they weren't authors, they weren't writers. And so the collaboration that we formed, the friendships that we formed through this, and what I really wanted to get out of this was the collaboration, true collaboration, meaning there's kind of, how do we define transcendent? If you ask 22 people are going to give you a different answer. Does it mean overcoming? Does it mean rising above? Does it mean, where are you, who is transcendent? Is Buddha, Jesus Christ, whoever you picture to be transcendent? Or is it that person that goes through a very tough time in their life, gets to rock bottom, and is able to bring himself out and become better on the other side? And when they do, they find themselves. I've often said that it's, for me, the journey was 1,000,000 miles between my head and my heart, because I never thought I had a heart. And I know that sounds funny, but my wife would say, hey, what do you feel about this? And I'd be like, I don't know, whatever you want to do. However, if she asked me, well, what do you think about this? I could go on for 2 hours. Oh yeah, easy, right? Because I was always in my head. And what this journey for me came through in my life journey, after having lost my daughter, having lost my wife, losing my parents last year, is dealing with life with compassion, dealing with life with that sense of self, a true understanding of self, but also wanting to give when a person transcends what they've been through and they've gone through that tough work and they get on the other side and they're loving life, they want to share that. They want to be the teacher. They want to enable other people to not have to, don't put your hand on the stove. Don't put your hand on your stove. Oh, you put your hand on the stove and you burnt it. Okay. Well, we want, and most of the guys, as we go through this and through this process, and we form this real strong kinship, friendship, and this, where I have new friends. I mean, when you get to a certain age, and I just turned 65 the other day. When you get to a certain age, it's not like high school and college, right? You're supposed to meet new people. You're supposed to make new friends. These are the time in your life. But as you get older, you don't meet people as readily. And you certainly don't meet people who have a very similar connection.
Mm-hmm.
And all of these men had that connection if they wanted to tell their story. They all had been through very, very rough times. Some of them horrible. But what they did in order to come out of it, they wanted to share, and they wanted to model that, and they wanted to be and show other men how you could be the best, very best person you could be, affect everybody around you, and be that model.
Mm.
The subtitle that we used was the model for masculinity. The one I used was how to be a guy without being an asshole. So because it's guys are gruff, they're sharp, they don't want to change, they don't, I've been doing this for 45 years. Why do I need to do it any differently? Mm-hmm. Really, life changes in a minute, in a second, in an hour, and it's constant. Mm-hmm. So you have to be open to that. You have to be open for it. Yeah. So I said about if I had a hammer. And the reason I use that is because the story I told the group is when I was about 12 years old, I said, my dad, can I have a hammer? He's like, why do you want a hammer? What are you going to do? I said, there's a tree out back, and I think I'd like to build something with it. He said, well, we don't really have a lot of wood. We don't have a lot of resources. I said, that's okay. So he said, well, here's a few nails. And so it was a 3-fork tree. And I built 2 steps, and then I built this very small platform. So I'm thinking, wow. So I climb up, and it's all of 3.5 feet off the ground, okay? And I'm standing on it myself, and my 12-year-old self, and I'm looking at him, wow, this is what my dad must see, how he sees life. I could see taller, I could see further. Pretty cool. And it just gave me a new perspective. And I'd say, call my friends up, and I said, come on. Of course, only 2 of us could stand on it at a time because it was so small. And we'd look at it and say, hey, this is pretty cool. You know what we could do? What? Why don't we build a real, we could get more people, we could build a tree house. Really? But I don't have anything. Well, my dad has some over here. And then one of my other friends said, my dad just tore out a window. You put a real window in it. What do you think? And so where I grew up, there were 13 boys within 3 years of age. And we all knew each other. We hung out together. We played sports. We did all those things. And so we built much bigger. It could hold 6 people at a time. And it ended up having, sides on it. And we had a real window in it. And we could climb up in it, and it was really cool. And, you could go up there and you could hide, and it's okay. The bugs won't get you, I promise. So we did that, and we started started becoming a meeting place. And somebody said, Dad just threw away a tire. Why don't we make a swing? So there's this huge, we climbed the tree, and we went up 40 feet. They had this huge tire swing. So now you could just push it forever, And so whenever you wanted to find somebody, you went to the treehouse. And so as we're hanging out there, they go, it'd be really cool. We have a roof on this. what if we could climb on the roof? Really? So we cut a hole in it with a ladder to get up, and now we're on top of the roof. Now we're about 20 feet up, and we're on the roof and we're supporting it. And they said, you know what? My dad just has a wooden ladder he wants to get rid of. What if we use that for support? Now, it ended up having 7 different levels on it. When we stood on the top level, I don't know if you know what a 3-decker is. It's a flat roof house with three apartments in it. Well, when we stood on that, we could see over a 45-foot 3-decker.
Wow.
There were 17 kids in that tree all at once, hanging out on different levels. It became really a meeting place all through my teenage years, all through, the kids that were younger than us would come. We'd play board games there in the summer. We just sit up there and look through the trees of the clouds. And the reason I told that story was because that's how I saw this collaboration for Transcendent Men, is that if you build it, they will come. If you talk in ideology, people are like, well, or an idea, right? You had an idea and you're doing this with courses, you're doing it with people, you're doing all that. But not until you have it, people can see it, touch it, feel it, smell it, does it become real for them that they say, oh, wow, yeah, I think we can do that. So it's that idea, that whole collaboration, that whole understanding. And I use the analogy for I had a hammer because all my life I've used different hammers to do different things. So I'm 25 years old, I'm married, and I have a couple kids, and my mom says, you really got to take it down. It's, it's just it's getting old. And it weathered storms and hurricanes and snow, and it stayed up there. So as I'm taking it down, I'm just kind of reflecting, here I am, I've got the ladder up. I'm married, I've got kids, I've got 2 jobs. And I'm thinking about how important that place went, how it became a center for us to hang out, for kind of a center of all of it. And I still hang out with a couple of my buddies that I met when I was 8 years old. Every Friday night we go to a friend's house and we play darts and drink beer and tell lies. And but we've known each other for over 57 years.
Wow.
And it's that bond. They know all the versions of me as much as I've known all the versions of them. And we've all gone away and moved away, and we came back to close to where we grew up and found each other. So there's that just the friendship, that bonding. And the funny thing that's happened through this book as we've done it, 2 weekends ago, I went up to Minneapolis. I flew from Boston to Minneapolis because Dan Gorbanow was having a warrior weekend. Now, he is a practitioner of Native American rituals, and we did a sweat lodge, and we did all these really cool, funky stuff. I always wanted to experience them, Have not walked on hot coals yet.
Yeah.
I still, yet. I have a feeling I'm going to end up doing that. But I look at it this way. If there are so many people that do something like this and experience it, where's the fear? Why my curiosity, and I've always felt that there are really 2 things in life, especially when you have a partner and you have joy in your life, is 2 things: curiosity, because you will always be young, because you always want to learn, you always want to change, you always want to understand. You have that with everybody that you interview. You have that curiosity, which comes so much. You are a 13-year-old girl in a grown-up body and you have not lost that spirit. I absolutely adore it.
Thank you.
And the other thing is a shared sense of humor with those closest to you.
Mhm.
Because if your husband takes a whipped cream pie and puts it in your face and you don't think it's funny,
There's something wrong.
there's probably going to be a problem. First of all, that he didn't know that he should never, ever do that if you do think it's funny. But also because life throws so many things at us.
Yeah.
Life will throw those obstacles in front of you.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that shared sense of humor, you're not going to weather all those hard times.
100%. Yeah.
I was sitting in a ball game and there was this young couple and they were having a very serious discussion. They were at that point in their life where, should we buy a house? When do we get married? All that. And I was just talking. They said, well, you were married for a long time. Well, what do you have to say about that? And I said, you need those two things. And they looked at me and said, I've never heard that. And I said, well, when you go through a lot of crap, you'll understand it, And it was really just very interesting, the conversations. Do you find that as you are now and where you are now, that people come to you and are attracted to you and will start telling you things and asking you things that they would never ask anybody else?
Yeah. It's always been that way.
I think you've always been that open. You've been empathic. Yeah. You've been always been that open and that caring, and you wear your heart. Yeah, it's right out in front of you, and that's it's probably very demanding for you emotionally, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's such a good point. It is, or has been. It isn't now because I'm more self-aware.
You have an understanding of it, right?
Yeah. So I know that, and I understand better why I'm here, who I am, what my purpose is, how I contribute to the world, on all timelines. I know all the nerdy things that we talk about, right, when we're on this healing journey. But yes, I've always had that capacity. So choosing to do a podcast just made absolute inherent sense, and doing it the way I'm doing it. So it's not, and I tell people this all the time, I'm not doing this for myself. It's purely because I love shining a light on these amazing things. And it's so funny you picked the word curiosity, or shared that the word curiosity is important, because that's what I say, like, follow your curiosity. You never know where it's going to take you, and that's exciting. And these are candid conversations for the curious. So if you're curious, there's just no limits to where you're going. So yeah, I love that. And a sense of humor, 100%. My husband and I have been married for 10 years. We've been together for 16 and a half, something like that. But we said from the beginning, we're only doing this if this is fun. Like, as soon as it's not fun and we can't, and we laugh at things that nobody else would ever understand.
It's called knowing your spouse, and in the worst times having black humor.
Yeah,
you say things to each other that are absolutely terrible, that if anybody ever heard them, but it's okay because you understand.
Yes, we always, when we get the time to spend time together, we're always laughing. It's always about that. It's not, we enjoy each other's company so much. But anyway.
Joy.
Yeah.
The joy. You live with that. You have that in just your heart space is just so wide open. It's just absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
Tell you a quick story. So my granddaughter's turning 13, and earlier in the summer I brought she and her brother, who's 3 years older, can't stand heights, but we went sky in the tunnel, skydiving, where you go in and you're just floating there. Okay, so we went there and they said, well, for $10 we'll shoot your way up. And I said, you guys want to do that? They said, yeah. So the first time you go in, you're understanding how you're hanging, and then the second time you go in, 30 feet up straight. And then they bring you down slowly. Then they bounce you up and then they bring you 6 inches from the ground. I didn't do it, they did. But of course, I'm sitting with the helmet, everything, and the goggles and everything else, and I have 10 kids sitting on the thing. All the parents are on the other side. They're with their phones recording everything, right? I'm with my grandkids. So I go up, my grandson who's scared of heights, I said, how was it? He says, great. And so my granddaughter is like, yes. Afterwards, she says to me, Papa, can we jump out of an airplane? 13 years old. She plays soccer, cheerleading, softball. She's just, she's got abs to die for. She's got abs better than her brother who plays football, basketball, baseball. And I said, yes, look it up. So we looked it up and said, no, you have to be 18. I said, what about bungee jumping? She said, yeah. She looked it up. No, you have to be 18. She said, what about zip lining? I said, okay. I said, find the longest one. Found the longest one, and it happened to be 3 hours away in Massachusetts. It's basically it's Catamount Mountain, and it's a ski slope. So you go up on this ski lift, go to the top, you go down about 1,000 feet zip line, and they're trying to figure out if you can go through it, because once you get going, you cannot stop, because this is over a mile long from the top to the bottom. A mile.
What?
You're strapped in.
How fast does it
You
go?
have cord and you pull down and you just go. And you're going 55, 60 miles an hour, screaming down this. And we're going together. So there's two of us and we're going together. So she's all of 90 pounds soaking wet. She pulls it really hard and she flies. So I pull it about 3/4, get a feel. Then I push down and I'm flying. I'm a little bit heavier than she is. I'm 6'2", 200 pounds. So I'm flying down. So she slows down to look over and I go screaming by her because she told me she was going to beat me. I'm going to beat you down. Okay. Not that she's competitive, of course.
No, not at all.
No. She just plays sports 7 days a week. So I'm getting down. I'm just slowing down. As you get down to the end, they say, okay, at this line start. So she comes screaming in, hits the spring and pushes it all the way back. And she looks over at me and smiles because she beat me by 2 feet. We went a mile long and she beat me by 2 feet. So she was happy. She says, I want to apologize. I said, for what? She said, you didn't hear me? I said, no, I could only hear the wind whistling. She said, I was screaming the whole way and swearing the whole way down. I'm sorry, all the words I said. I said, why? Would you do it again? She says, oh, yeah. So the reason I tell that story is I now have a date with my granddaughter after she turns 18 to jump out of an airplane. She and I.
Oh my goodness. Well, there you go. She doesn't sound like someone who's going to forget.
Oh, Lord, no. At 18 months old, she was running a house who had 2 older brothers and parents, and she was running the house. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, she's usually gets her way. But that's we've gone rock climbing, we've done archery, we go mountain hiking. We do those things. Her parents don't do those things, but I get to do those with them. Usually, but with my grandkids, I'm usually viewing them anyway because they're so sports oriented. I get to view them playing sports or at practice or, and then I get one of these. And that's kind of sort of about it because they're with their teammates, they're with their friends, and that's fine. But when I take them and we do adventures, things that they don't normally do, then I get that time off the phone talking. And that for me is just everything. So again, it's connection, it's collaboration, it's doing the fun stuff. Some of the guys in the book, we're going to be meeting in Florida in November. Some of the guys, I went out to Minneapolis. There were 12 of us at that warrior training, and they were all shocked that I would fly from Boston to do this. It's like, yeah, why not? It was my birthday present to myself. I got an offer to go to Bali because one of the authors lives there. So I was going to bring my girlfriend out to Paris, April in Paris, the whole da 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 da.
Yeah.
And I said, well, we can still go to Paris, or we have an opportunity to go to Bali. She went, okay, no choice. Bali it is.
Yeah.
So I looked, I think next April, May, where we may very well be in Bali. I've spent time in, I went 17 days, my friend and I, when I turned 60, best friend, he was the best man at my wedding. And we spent 17 days in Europe.
Mm.
We landed in Munich, went to Prague, went all through Germany. On my 60th birthday, I woke up the night before. I said to my buddy Paul, I said, I want to do something special for my birthday. I'm turning 60. So we had breakfast in Germany. We had lunch in Strasbourg, France. And we had dinner in Switzerland.
Mm.
So I thought it was a wonderful way to celebrate turning 60. The next year, we went to 17 days to Thailand, Cambodia, and Vietnam.
Wow.
And it was just absolutely stunning. The year after that, I went to Singapore and Malaysia. And the reason for that is a long story. And I know you don't have a couple hours, but suffice it to say that curiosity is all about travel. It changes your perspective.
Mm-hmm.
When I say first world problems, we don't worry about where our next meal is coming from. We don't worry that we don't have running water. We don't worry that we're going to be cold,
Mm-hmm.
or that we don't have enough money for more than one shirt.
Mm-hmm.
So when I look at that perspective, I just, gratitude is that tool that I use on a daily basis. Every night, I'm thankful for the day that I've had and everything that's been in it, and everybody I've been able to touch, just connect with. And in the morning, the chance for another day. And that gratitude, that sense of gratitude, of appreciation, takes me through each and every day. And it's a wonderful, wonderful tool to use for everybody out there, that we don't realize how good we have it. The fact that we can be on Zoom,
Mm-hmm.
okay, you and I, and
I'm
in Boston.
We started on StreamYard.
Well, I'm in Boston and you're in
New Jersey.
You're in Jersey, right? So all of, the fact that we can do this instantaneously is absolutely miraculous. And the fact that you can take this and stream it to anybody and everybody. And think about this. People from all over the world can see this
Mm-hmm.
at any time.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hoping that these words that you put out there, these all of this that you put out there, people hear when they need to.
Yeah.
Because I think that's why we're here.
Agreed. I know it's why I'm here.
Yeah. Your voice is always right there.
Yeah, it is about that. And speaking to like find your voice, save your life, I'm not even at that point anymore. I'm at the whose life am I affecting in all places and spaces, present and future, and giving people like yourself the opportunity to share your stories, to share your gems in life, and be able to pay those forward to people who will receive it, and it will inspire them in some way. I mean, even just thinking back to what you were saying about, all you wanted was a hammer to make yourself a little platform. You had no idea that it was going to become, a triple decker kind of a thing where you and it included so many people. So, but the purity of your intention was there. and the excitement and the desire of, well, if I can get this high up off the ground and I can get this perspective, then what happens if I do this? Which leads to you're going to be 70 and jumping out of an airplane. I mean, that's going to give you even bigger perspective. That's bigger than your original.
That'll give you perspective. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If you've never been up in a small plane, it gives you a new appreciation for being on a jetliner. Because when you're on a small 6-seater or 4-seater, you feel every single.
Yes, you do.
And it's pretty cool. What you have out there right there is in Sacred Death. I see that in Sacred Medicine and the writing that you've done. I'm going to just key something. Then I want to ask you, but I've written in 3 of the books with Brave Healer Productions. Each one has been an adventure and a journey for me to really delve into telling my story. But it's also changed my story.
Mm-hmm.
It really has, because it's now, I've told my stories, and that's wonderful. I had the opportunity and I've grown through them. But now my story has changed because it's about what I'm doing and going to do. And one of the authors said, you know, it doesn't bother me that 1 million people might read my story. But the scariest part is when the people closest to me read it. You know, well, that's not how I remember it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you know, sometimes that gets to it. But how has writing, what has that done for you?
For me, I think it's a beautiful way to track where I've been, you know, and I think about like other people in my life and how much it would have been so special to have their perspective on their stories, you know, and what they were going through. So I feel like, you know, if I'm blessed someday to have grandchildren, for them to be able to read it and be like, Grandma, you did what? You wrote what? Tell me more about this. Like, I think, you know, true story, when I wrote for Sacred Death, and I wrote about my grandfather, and he was in France and a couple other places during World War II, and writing to my grandmother before they were married. And so I have a box of letters between them, back and forth and back and forth.
Wow.
And, you know, and their budding relationship through it. And they both had just this beautiful way of setting the tone and the picture of what was happening in their lives then. And to me, it's just historically, it's fascinating. You know, having been their grandchild, it's fascinating. Like just the whole idea of the time and how letters were the way that people communicated. And, you know, we're so used to the instantaneous, but there could have been like weeks in between an answer to a question that was written in a letter, you know? So I think for people to have a track of who I was and where I went and what I thought and how I felt, I think is really special. And I'm far past that point of like, oh God, what if somebody reads this? I feel like the more I lean into who I am, the more people feel that permission to do so themselves. So I see it that way now. I'm not, you know, really worried about how people are going to receive it. Yeah. So that's kind of my take on it. And writing for me is just, it's the same as breathing, my heart beating, blinking my eyes. It's such an inherent part of who I am.
And that is a wonderful thing. That is a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
What I do for work, and I do it part-time because I work in IT, for local public schools. But what I do is locally, people are drawn to me, and it's, I'll tell you something, just a story that happened recently. So as you get elevated, as you get a higher vibrationally and all of this, through my website, gentleman contacted me, and he said, I won't give particulars, but he just said, I'd really like to, I need to connect with you. And I said, okay. So I called him, and we arranged a call. And he said, well, I have two people that do Reiki for me. One is in Florida. One is, he lives in St. Louis, and another one is in St. Louis. And the one in St. Louis said, you need to see somebody. And the woman in Florida said, you need to see Scott Holmes. Now, I don't know her. I've never met her. I've never connected with her. And I said, so she said to get in touch. She said, yes. She was told to tell me to get in touch with you. And I was like, seriously? So we're just about to start sessions, actually tomorrow night. But things come to you when you put it out there. And the reason I brought that up, because of how I was very affected by it, in that touched my heart, that these things come when you don't know where they're coming from, least expected, and that I can do some good with healing people. And so I've always said I'm going to be living to 100. So I have another 35 years of doing this work, because I was going to go for massage, but you can only do that so long because it takes such a wear and tear on your body. But I can do energy work forever. And when in the healing and the grounding and the clearing that I do with people, leaves them the space to be able to find themselves, make better choices, feel grounded in their life, and be able to start finding the joy in living. And that's where I am with everything that I do. But I also heal the healers. Those people that heal others don't always take care of themselves. And they forget sometimes about the basics of what and how they do it. And they do it for everybody else. And sometimes they're so involved in the 5D that the 3D takes a hit. And you have to be so, your body has to be able to handle all the energy that you're moving, all those intentions, everything that you're doing. And so I found a few ways to be able to help those who heal others. And that's where I keep hearing. I don't hear a lot of things, but I keep getting whispered in my ear this is what you need to do. This is what you need to do. Okay, got it. All right, I hear you. I'm heading there. I'm getting there. It's okay. Apparently not always to their liking fast enough, but I am getting there. And in talking with you, that helps me get to where I need to go. Because I find that the more I express it, the more that I put it out there, the more comes back. And this is an absolutely wonderful facility to be able to do that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I think it's so true what you said. I think, especially when you sort of get into this spiritual journey and you're sort of, like you said, up here in the 5D and the cosmos, and forget to eat and drink and sleep, and all of a sudden you're like, oh gosh, when was the last time I XYZ? You're like, wait, humans, they require upkeep.
Really do. We really do. This body is actually meant to last much longer than 100 years, by the way. This body is meant to not disintegrate the way it does. And if we can bring energy through our bodies and through our light bodies in the correct way, if we balance everything and everything's working perfectly, who knows how long it can last.
Well, yeah, and it's so funny because I'm laughing because my son asked me the other day, said, like, who lived the longest, Mom? Who's the oldest person on the planet now? Who lived the longest? You know, you start doing all your research with the what is it called? The world records, right? So
Yeah,
who holds the
Guinness
world record?
World Record. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's like
So
129 or something
something like
years
that.
old. This little Russian woman in this little woman in Russia, and they say, well, what do you? She says, hard work and good vodka. I don't know. Maybe that's all she's got, right? Excuse the cat.
Yeah,
Um,
always. It's always okay.
he likes being on television. I don't know. He's got a bit of an ego. He gotta apologize. But you know, it's that those people that you always find. My grandfather was 92 and had a better memory than I've ever had at 92. He could remember years and dates and people and events, and he loved people and he loved talking to them, and he could remember absolutely everything. And I was so fascinated with that, because I'll be introduced to somebody, and 2 minutes after I meet them, name's gone, just out of my head. Just that I'm like searching for it. I'm going, please say your name again. I'm really hoping you do, because I don't want to really want to look. Yeah, it really is. So yeah, the body is meant to, and I find that the more, if you don't use it, you're going to lose it. So physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, every curiosity of life, if you don't use it, you will lose it.
Mm.
And at 70 years old, you're going to be sitting in the same house doing the same thing, eating in front of the television and not doing anything in life. And that is not. I'm retiring in a couple of years, and I plan on, work kind of holds me back. I intend to travel and teach and train and heal all over the world. And I want to I intend to do that, and to really touch it and connect with as many people as I possibly can, because that's what life is all about. You want to talk about immortality? Immortality is that part of you within somebody. A friend of mine, her mom in high school said to me, I realized something, that I can only make so many changes in this world. I can only make, a difference in this world by small degrees. But if part of me goes into my children, and then part of them goes into their grandchildren, and it might be in my great grandchild that helps find a cure for cancer, and I'm a part of that. That's how I can change the world, by being and having a part of me within them. And it's that little touch. People have thanked me for things that I don't even realize I've said to them, that encourage them to do things that they wouldn't normally do, or they were thinking about doing. And it's just that encouragement. Most people are just, as we know, most people, fear inhibits the growth, they inhibits them stepping forward. And I'm gonna find out whether that inhibits me from jumping out of that airplane. So so yes, bravery is not the absence of fear. Bravery is being afraid and doing something anyway.
And I have to say that for you to take on the project of, creating this space for this collaboration to come forward, and find your voice, save your life I think that is bravery, to boldly go into that space and to open space, like I said, for all these gentlemen to come in and to participate. I think is so incredibly special.
And here's what's happened because of it. I have guys who want to tell their story now.
Mm.
And I don't know where that's going to lead, but they, you know, I was talking with a gentleman who was incarcerated unfairly for 22 years. And he's absolutely one of the warmest, kindest guys you'd ever want to meet right now. And he's, as he said, he was angry for years and years and years. But he understands things now. And, you know, I said, would you like a place to tell your story? He said, yes. So I think, you know, Transcendent Men is not just a one-off. I think it's truly going to be more, because that vulnerability, men don't get that very often. They don't get the chance to be. Aren't in a safe place, because they've always got to be the guy, and they have all those expectations they were raised with, and just being able to feel and express those feelings. I didn't know for years that I could express how I felt for years, because I had all the armor on. I built castle walls to protect everyone and everything. The only problem is they became a prison.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody could get it in, but I couldn't get out.
Mm-hmm.
And so bringing all those down and taking the armor off and shedding all of that, you know, you don't need it to be brave. You don't need to be the knight in shining armor. That part of your heart, when it's glowing that bright, is stronger than any other force on earth. And I truly have no fear anywhere anymore. And led me to talk to you tonight, and that's I find is really absolutely amazing and beautiful.
Yeah, I agree. I think this project is one of many to come, and you're definitely a way shower and a path striker, and allowing men to have their voice heard as well, I think is important. And not to downplay, you know, having female voices be heard, but I think the idea that we can equalize that a little bit, and allow the human experience to be one where our feelings can be expressed and celebrated regardless of what we identify as, I think is a really special way to pave way for the future and for our children and grandchildren, you know.
Well, I think the biggest part of all of this in the journey is that, you know, women have found their masculine side, which is absolutely wonderful. It's what I wanted for my daughter. I wanted them to feel that equality, that strength. But the dichotomy is that men, in order to truly become a fully evolved man, has to find their sacred feminine.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be very careful, by the way, about who you broach that with, because you might get punched in the nose. Because it's a very foreign concept. Yeah. But if you look at that long list of names for Transcendent Men, they're some of the most giving, vulnerable people I've ever met, and they want to heal the world. They truly do, with everything that they do. Whether it's one person at a time or 100 people at a time, they want to do that, and they want to give back. And I think that's where we all get to at a certain point, is just being able to do that. One other thing before we go, that, you know, in telling our stories, and you've told your stories at least those 4 times, if not another 100 in 4 times, that, you know, we all, because we've lived our life, we don't necessarily think it's extraordinary. We were there. We experienced it. But someone else looks at that and says, oh my gosh, I could never do that. I could never. how could you ever get through that? And that's where I think it's so important that we tell our stories, that we maintain this communication, that we maintain this flow of ideas and love and spirit and light and all of that. Because it's going to touch someone when they want to need to hear it the best, at that best time, that one time when they're just either that or in many cases, I need to, when people need a kick. When you ask them that really tough question and they get that deer in the headlights look in their eyes, right? And they go, oh, crap, he caught me. And you ask the question. The one time I love clients coming in, because they usually come in because they're at a point in their life and they want to change something. And the third or fourth session, they come in and go, I don't know what we're going to talk about today. That's when you go, okay, let's talk about, now that you're pretty much settled, let's talk about what's really going on. And that's when the real work begins.
100%, yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
It does. Well, I thank you. This has been so wonderful having you here. And again, I thank you for your flexibility, patience, and problem-solving skills in terms of IT. And I really encourage everybody watching, everybody listening, to download a copy of the book from Kindle or purchase a handheld book if you're still into that. But share it with someone. I'm thinking to myself, this is a book to pass on, maybe to a young man graduating college or high school, or somebody going through a tough time, just to have people whose stories you can resonate with and capture the essence of that piece of thing where we go through something and we come out the other side and we're different, we're transformed. And I think reading all of these stories, you realize the transformations you have already been through and never registered for yourself. And the potential and the possibilities become endless for you. You know, how much better can your life get? So it sounds like, from my perspective on the other side of the virtual table, that your life can't really get much better, except maybe to be fully retired, so that you're not forced to reckon with keeping on your schedule and not being able to travel as much as you desire. But it sounds like there's a lot of joy in your life and you're just getting started.
Yeah, I really am. I wake up every day and I just know that something amazing is going to happen. And thanks to you, my day has been amazing. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I love it. Likewise, I think this is such a great conversation, a great opportunity for people to get a sense of what you're up to. We'll have in the show notes all the places that you can find Scott, and please, please, please read this book. It's going to change your life. And once you get through that and you're looking for something else to read, Scott and I have been part of this collaborative book, because people in our circle, we just keep doing books together, right? So this is Wealth Code, Sacred Strategies for Abundance. We both wrote in this book, and if you're looking to up-level your life in terms of abundance, wealth, health, happiness, joy, ecstatic living, which we know Jen Puseno is known for, then you need to get a copy of this book and get yourself through A to Z. It's an amazing guide. So we will also link that in the show notes for you. I'm so appreciative of your time and your energy. And I look forward to hearing from you again. And please come back sooner than, after you jump out of the plane at 70. But definitely want to hear about that adventure in whatever format the podcast happens to be at that point, because the audience is going to want to know how this plays out in the end.
Thank you.
So
It was a pleasure.
thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. All right, everyone. I want to thank you so much for being here with us. And remember what I always say, stay curious, follow that curiosity. You never know where it's going to lead you. Have a good night.